So some strategies that we've used over the years to do alternatives to suspension or expulsion are rehab type programs. One of the districts in the Denver area would put on drug programs. They put on anger management programs. They would put on programs as far as motivating children and student engagement. And these programs that they would put on, they invited the parent and the student both had to attend. So if there was a potential student that brought drugs into school, wasn't high at the time, or didn't appear to be high, it was something that we could put on as an alternative to suspension. That kid would not be in the class for the rest of the day, let me tell you that. But we could do an in-school suspension with this alternative programming, because it's about the education. If there's a repeat behavior that's happening, there's a lack of education and some kind of gap that needs to be filled. So instead of just giving a punishment, we really tried to build that kid up. And the family, because sometimes the family didn't have strategies or they weren't aware of their impact. And maybe the family needed strategies as well to think about drug and alcohol prevention. So that was one really great strategy. The other thing that we used was a community liaison. So that adult was a person that could be a confidant for students that would be able to track what was happening. There's something similar going on with GSN called the advocacy program. So that would be like the advocate that would really know what was happening with that student, to be able to see things before they happen. So for example, if a student was gang involved on one side and there was another student that was gang related on another side, we would make sure that nobody was flashing colors, and if there was a problem, that person would have more of an in to know if that conflict was occurring. And it doesn't happen just between gangs, like it happens between like normal kids as well. So just having adults knowing their students in the building and being able to, and having a safe relationship with those adults and students really can prevent a lot of things from happening, because then myself as an administrator or the teachers could be able to have a conversation about how to think through solving the problems in a different way. So one of the ways that we train adults and students is with restorative justice as one of our key cornerstone types of discipline, to really talk through the conflict and figure out what was happening, what were the triggering events, how did people feel about what agreements can be made, and then really holding kids accountable to those agreements is an important part of that process. And so the advocate or the teacher would be also part of the team at understanding what were those agreements and holding the kids responsible for those agreements. And then the parents would be involved in that kind of conversation as well. So the restorative practice really kind of brings everybody together and around the table to be able to talk about the behavior, so it's not an isolated thing where the kid just feels like I did something bad, and then it just keeps going. The other thing that I do continuously is love and logic. So giving kids control over their choices, so that they don't feel like somebody's always telling them what to do. It gives them ownership, and that gives them responsibility in the process of understanding why conflict is occurring, because it's there for a reason. So if you don't pay attention to the reasons why it's there, then it is going to continue to reoccur. And then, you can always get outside counseling as well. There's different organizations with each county and district that are available, and I do refer kids regularly to seek counseling, and sometimes parents to be able to understand what are the underlying feelings that trigger this. And then working within those social emotional behaviors and learning about them and getting better at different strategies to be able to kind of not control but understand them, and then be able to be more successful in the given environment. So what I think we see as most common reasons for suspension or expulsion oftentimes have to do with unsafe behavior. So unsafe behavior at an elementary level could be a student who continually hits or strikes out when he's in line or in art class, or throwing things in a way that's uncontrollable. And a suspension would never be the first step in that process. A suspension would only come after repeated interventions where the child still is demonstrating the similar behavior and where it becomes a really unsafe environment, either for the child, him or herself, or the classroom around them. Once you move into the middle and high school populations, that changes a bit. Physical violence is always still a concern, whether they're hitting and striking other students. It is definitely, it can be a problem, but also depending on disrespect, like with teachers and defying authority, oppositional defiant behavior, drugs becomes a really big issue. Bringing weapons to school is also an issue that we deal with regularly. And I would say truancy is never a reason that I would expel, and it is not a reason why I personally also suspend, because if the issue is that the student isn't there, then suspending him is not the correct management tool. We have to figure out where that truancy is coming from. So that's kind of how I see the main reasons for suspension. We gotta be safe. We gotta make sure that our community's safe. And if it's not, then we've gotta go through proper channels to try to make sure that it is safe for everybody.